Oh, yeah.
Alright, so the next section we're going to start on is going to be the products and services. So I'm going to show you guys how to essentially manage your products and services in QuoteWerks and the databases. So if you want to import a price file, if you want to link to an existing price file, if you want to link to a ConnectWise product list, or auto task list, or Salesforce list, I'm going to show you how to do that here. So under the products menu, you're going to see there's an option that says set up product sources. So I'm going to show you how to link to a product source first, because that's going to be the fastest, that's the easiest. We can link to really any type of ODBC compliant database. So you can link to an Excel file, you can link to an Access file, you can link to a SQL database. You can also link to the ConnectWise, Autotask, and Salesforce price files as well.
I'm sorry, what did you just do to open this screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's under Products,
Okay.
Set up Product Sources. So I'm going to go ahead and link to one of them. We'll do ConnectWise. I'm just going to remove it real quick. So to link to a new product source, we're going to click on New, and then you're going to see a list of drop-downs that are available. In this case, we're going to select ConnectWise, and then there's not going to be much else you have to do. That's why I like showing this one, because it's already pre-mapped for you. And then you would simply name it, and then hit Next, and you can pretty much leave all the defaults for any of the ones that you're using. If you're using Autotask, ConnectWise, or Salesforce, you can just leave the defaults because they're already pre-mapped. If you remember in the options, very early this morning we talked about limiting who has access to specific product sources. When you are creating or editing your product list, this is when that's going to be available. Now, since we're just linking to a product list, we don't have the ability to create, modify, or delete the items. You need to do that in that product list itself, but you can choose who has access to it. So if you don't want someone to view a specific product list, this is where you can choose exactly who has the ability to view it. So we're going to click Next, and then Finish, and then you'll see here it shows up in our product list here. So if we wanted to import a price list or maintain a QuoteWerks price list, it's going to be a little different. We're going to actually run the import wizard. Now one thing I want to show you before we do that is if you already have a price list, you can click on Edit. And then this is where you can see the ability to create, modify, and delete, and you can control exactly who has the ability to make these changes in QuoteWerks. So you can actually say, okay, our administrator can view, they can create items, they can modify, and they can delete them. Brandon, he can view, he can modify, but he can't delete. Jen, she can just view, and John, he can just view. So these are the people who have specific access to this specific price file. Maybe John doesn't sell those items, so you don't even want them in that database. That's where you can set that. Does that make sense?
Did you go to define menu items? Oh, how did you get to that?
I don't see that screen either.
Okay. Alright, so if you have a QuoteWerks product database, and you click on Edit, and you click Next, and it's going to be... Right. And then click Next, and then we used to have step numbers, we don't have those anymore. There should be a security step. Now if you don't see that security step, that means you need to enable the security under your Tools Options menu. And then click on the Security tab. And then check the box that says Enable Individual Product Data Source Level Security. And then once you've enabled that, you can edit one of your product lists under the Product Setup Product Sources.
And that's how you can delete it if you want to like overtype it.
I mean, you can delete it actually from this screen if you wanted to. The enabling the product data source security just basically limits who has access to it and who can make changes inside that database.
Okay, and then to import new, you just go to new and then
Yeah, absolutely. There's two ways to do it. I'm going to show you both.
Okay, perfect.
So if you wanted to create a new product database, maybe you don't have a price file, you're going to be adding your items manually. So what we can do is we can click on New, and it's going to prompt us to select our database type. So if you're going to set up a QuoteWerks database, that'll probably be most of them. You're going to select QuoteWerks as the database type. If it's Access, if it's an Access file that you're going to link to, then you choose Access. If it's an Excel file you're going to link to, you choose Excel, that kind of thing. So in this case, we're going to do QuoteWerks, choose Next, and then it's going to prompt you. Do you want to create a new QuoteWerks native database, or do you want to link to an existing one? If you have an old QuoteWerks database that you want to link to, then you can link to it. If you just want to create a brand new one, we'll do create new. And then when you click next, if you've enabled the security, it'll pop up here and it'll show you who has the ability to view, create, modify, and delete. So you can set those settings here. And then the next one is going to be if you want to show all the products and services when the product source is selected. So basically when you select this product, it just lists all the items in the product source. That's fine. You know, if you have a product database that has 1 million items, you may not want to do that because it'll take just a couple seconds for it to load. You can also auto-generate manufacturers folders. So if you want to break out your quote or your product database with the different manufacturers into separate folders, QuoteWerks can do that automatically for you with that box checked. Obviously, you do have to have the manufacturers in your product list already set. And then the disabled product data source, this is extremely useful if you have maybe an old product list that you don't use, but you keep it around for historical purposes, but you don't want to delete it, you don't want anyone to see it, you just need to keep it there for maybe any kind of reporting. You can disable the product source, and it won't show up in your product list, but it'll still be available here. And I'll actually show you what it looks like. It'll be red. So it's going to prompt me to name my database, so I'm just going to call this our training database. So there's my new database that I just created, and then this is this one in red here that you can see. You can see that it is disabled, so it's still in QuoteWerks. I didn't delete it, but no one has access to it, so no one can make changes to it. No one can even see it. Really, for historical purposes, the only reason we keep it in.
I have an obscure one that a company sent us, and I was thinking of creating and importing. Excuse me. How much is the penalty? Because it's fair, like I said, it's obscure. We don't really use them all that often. And there's 18,000 items in that parts list. So I just didn't. So you know what I need to? I'll just open the Excel file that they sent me. I mean, what is my penalty as far as if I imported that into QuoteWerks? Is it going to? I just didn't want to add any overhead to it.
No, I mean, it'll take 18,000 items, so it'll probably take about 2 seconds to import.
But I mean, as far as usability, going forward, like I said, I don't need to access it.
Oh no, that's, I mean, 18,000 items is really not that many. We have customers that have 500,000 items in the database. You won't see any performance issue. The only way you would see any kind of performance issue is if you had a very large database, and when you clicked on it, it loads all the items at once. That's it. But just having it in QuoteWerks is not going to hurt it.
Because you just select it as far as where you want to look, which one you want to look into.
Exactly.
So I just have it in that listing. It's not loading it every time I load
Exactly.
QuoteWerks, only when I want to utilize it.
Right.
That's the answer I'm looking for. Yeah, great, thank you.
Alright, so this is how you can set up a database beforehand, so you can set it up for importing. You can also set up a new database when you're going to do an import. So we're actually going to run through importing a product file into QuoteWerks. So to do that, we're going to click on our products menu again. We're going to click on our import wizard. And then the first thing we need to do is we need to select a file. Now, we can't import Excel files, they need to be CSV files. So if you do have an Excel file from your vendor, just save it as a CSV, and then we can import it in. So I'm going to choose select, and then we're going to go to my desktop here. And then I have my items ready to be imported. You can see it's already a CSV file. You can also do a text file as well. So if you want to import it as a text file, that's fine. But most vendors will give it to you in Excel and just save it as a CSV.
Is this where you'll be able to select your automatically show your profit, your fee, your margins and stuff?
Yes, you can set it here, yeah. So once you've set it, it's basically going to read your file and it's going to fill in this information for you. You really shouldn't need to change any of this unless you absolutely want to, but the default settings will work fine for you here. So we're going to click next. So it's going to bring you to the mapping. So the mapping is going to show you kind of like the default fields in QuoteWerks, what we typically see as the most important or most common fields. So we can set our vendor part number, and you can see I have mine set to show the sample data from line 1. So So if you need to view the data, you can actually click on this button. This will actually show you the data of the information you're looking to import. Screen is not quite big. So you can actually see what you're importing into QuoteWerks and which field is which. So I know mine's already been mapped properly. I cheated and I went ahead and did it beforehand. But I know that that's my vendor part number field, so I'm going to map it there. And then it's just matching the fields up. So my description, that's going to be my customer facing description. So we'll map that one. The manufacturer, we can map that one. And then the manufacturer part number. The manufacturer part number is really the only required field for your items. That's how QuoteWerks determines that an item is essentially different from another item. So you always want to make sure you map your manufacturer part number field. Vendor part number, manufacturer, cost, price list, even really the description, they're all essentially optional fields in QuoteWerks. Obviously, to send a quote to the customer, you probably at minimum want the description, the part number, and the price. But you can change that if you need to. But the manufacturer part number is the only actually required field in QuoteWerks. If you're mapping your cost, you'll be able to set a default markup. If you're mapping your list, you can set how to calculate the cost from your list. Same thing for price. Mine are already preset, so I'm just going to go ahead and map them just so you can see that. But you can change that if you need to. If you just leave it blank, it just won't map. So even if you have data in there that you don't want to pull in, just leave it blank and it won't map it. So that's going to be step 2. Step 3 is actually going to show you a list of all the fields that are available in QuoteWerks for mapping. And on the right hand side, we're going to show you all the fields that are available from your text file that can be mapped. So if you have additional fields, if you have, maybe your items have colors or sizes, or there's some notes that are involved, this is where you can actually map those additional fields. So in my instance, I have an item type field. So I have an item type field in QuoteWerks, so I can map that to my item type field in QuoteWorks. This is just in alphabetical order, so I know I just need to go down to the I's here. And then you simply highlight your 2 fields, and when they're highlighted, you just click map. And once they've been mapped, you'll see the little star will show up next to it. If you go through the rest of this, you can actually see where the different fields have already been mapped, if you've mapped any other ones. So you can essentially set any fields that you need to. This is where that's going to be done. So you'll have custom fields, notes, anything.
Pictures as well.
You can't map pictures, unfortunately. Yeah, if you have in your text file, if you have the picture file, like where it's stored, then yes, you could map it. Because there is an ampersand picture field here. There's a picture file name. So in your file, as long as you have a list of all the file names where it's stored, then yes, you could map it there, and then that would be the way to do that.
What do you mean by list? So it would be like, if it was under a big Excel sheet, what would be the header for it?
Exactly,
Okay.
right. So like, this is essentially what my Excel sheet looks like, is that I have 7 different fields or 8 different
Okay,
fields.
so a field.
So if I had field 9, and then it's a picture file, and it says, this picture field is located at, C desktop applications picture 1.jpg. It says all that under that field name. When you map those, QuoteWorks will read that, know where the picture is stored, and then when you pull the item in, it will pull the picture.
Brandon?
Yes.
So for like one product line that we have, like the discount for some things would be 15% and some would be 20%. Would we have to like separate those and import them separately?
That would probably be your best bet.
Right.
You could import the entire product file into one database and then essentially update. Is it done by, how do you like determine the different product lines, different manufacturers, or?
It's yeah.
Well, this is one manufacturer we're talking about, and certain things like parts we get 15% and other things we get 20% on, like robots, say.
Okay. If you had a way to determine the difference, basically, you can tell QuoteWorks how to update a specific items in a product database. If you can tell QuoteWorks how to essentially differentiate them.
Okay.
So if you can say, hey, this product line, they'll have a custom text field of robot or whatever. So we're going to get to that. You can actually say, hey, if custom text equals this, update price, and then you can change the modifier or something like
So
that.
we'll go over
So
that a
there's
little bit in the future.
Would you also, for the cost modifier, would you also, or price modifier, would you make that a field on your Excel sheet, or
You could.
like for the ones that are
Yeah,
this much, the
if-
ones that are this much?
Exactly. Yeah, if they're all going to be different, then you can do that. If they're all going to be the same, you can actually just map the field here.
So what is this?
There's a there's a cost modifier field, and if you do properties, you could just put in the value. So if it's, if your cost is M25 or whatever from list, you could put that in there.
Okay.
So but that'll only work if they're all the same. If they're all different, then you're right. You have another section, another column, and then you have those
And those
remapped.
would be under that.
Exactly.
It's additional fields.
Any questions about the mapping?
One additional question, I just want to get this right in my head. You can start out as a spreadsheet, you have to save it as a CSV, so a text file,
Correct.
and then you map from that. So you could have master sheets, update those sheets then, and would you overwrite those files or delete those files when you go to update pricing?
You'll actually have the option.
Okay,
Yeah, you'll see on the next step, you can actually choose if you want to update the price file in QuoteWerks, if you just want to overwrite it, if you just want to add new items, that kind of thing. There'll be a couple different options for it.
so you really should build a set of spreadsheets to begin with and then work from those. Pretty much each time you have to update price list or change price list or,
You can. It's hard to say this is the one way to do it because it depends on how often your items change. If your items change often, yeah, you're probably going to want a list of different Excel sheets that you can just say, oh, we got a new one from the vendor, let's go and re-import this one. If they're pretty static, you may not even use the Excel sheet once you get them in QuoteWerks. You may just manage it in QuoteWorks moving forward.
okay.
So it just kind of depends on your circumstances.
Yeah, because most of the companies we deal with, they only update once a year or every 2 years, so.
Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, like on disposable items, usually we import, we have descriptions that are multi-lined. Is it an auto word wrap up? So if you just have a one long line
Yeah.
text, it'll just auto wrap it to fit that?
Yeah, our description
Description
field holds 32,000 characters, which is about 30 pages of text per line.
Yeah, I've seen.
So you should be okay.
Fantastic.
Any other questions about mappings? Alright, so the next one is going to be the destination step. This is where you're actually choosing where you're going to import this price file. So by default, we're going to show you a list of all the product databases that you've set up. So there's our new database that we set up today. If you did not set up a database, it's not a big deal. You can just have QuoteWerks create a brand new one for you. And you would just select that option. So if you've already set up the database and you want to import it, or maybe you're updating, then you can select from the options here. If you hadn't set it up, then you'll just choose this option. So we're going to go ahead and have QuoteWerks create us a new one. You can choose where the import starts. I'm going to start mine at 2 because I know my first row are just header lines. You can always just add it 1, start at 1, and you can always delete it. That's fine because it's just going to come in as a product. Create product folders. If you've mapped your items to folders, so basically you had another column on your Excel sheet that had different folder names, and you mapped that on the previous step, that would actually let you create these product folders so that they're essentially organized for you.
Is that like if you had your database had, you had one sheet, which had multiple manufacturers, you say?
Actually, with the manufacturers, we're going to do that automatically. We'll already separate out manufacturers for you in your own folders. It's if you wanted to do like product type, like if you're importing
Instead of having it all listed on the side, it would be
removing leading and trailing spaces from all field data. This is useful for searching, so that you don't have to worry about, oh, is there 2 spaces between this item, or is there dead space in front of it or after it? This will remove those spaces for you so that it makes it easier to find your items. And then your import mode. So this is where we kind of touched on it about like updating a price list. So if you're importing a price list brand new, you've never imported this price list before, you're creating a new database, you're going to choose the first option, which is going to delete all existing products and append the new products. Obviously there's no products in there, so it's going to import all of them. The second option is going to append the products to the existing products. So if you're updating the list where you've already imported a price list and you just want to add the new ones to this list, you'll choose this option. The third option is going to update existing products and append new products, but you can actually choose which, essentially which ones you want to update. So this is what we were kind of talking about earlier, where you can differentiate. So now you can actually say, hey, we only want to update the unit cost of the manufacturer part numbers, and then you choose the map fields. I don't have a good example of this one, unfortunately, this isn't a good one to do it, but this is basically where you can say only map or only update these specific items, don't update all of them, only update ones that we're specifying here. And then this one will update, does essentially the same thing, it's just not adding new products. So there's two options for updating your existing product list, or you can just add new items to an existing one, or you can start with a fresh list. In this case, since we're starting with a new database, we're going to start with a fresh list.
Can you delete a single item?
From here, no. If you wanted to say one item is no longer being sold and you're doing an import, you could just delete all existing and add the new ones, because then it'll just essentially do a re-import and save over it. So that item's no longer on the list and won't show up. If you want to just delete the single item though, it's usually just easiest to go to the product database, find the item, right click, delete, and it's over. And then QuoteWerks is going to prompt you to save this as a template. So if you want to save this as a template so you don't have to do the import each time, you can actually name your template here. So you can give it a name. And what this will do is that this is actually going to remember your settings for your import. So instead of having to go through all the steps we went through last time, if you get the same format from the same vendor each week, month, however often you update, you won't have to go through these mappings anymore. You just save it as a template, and then you can check it just to make sure everything remains the same, but it'll save you a lot of time when you do it later. And now it's just prompting me to name my database. So we'll just call this our training V2. And then it's asking for the new database file name. Typically you're going to use the same thing. It's called the same name as the database. And then it'll let you know that it imported it. And then if we go to our products here, there's our new database, and then you can see here's all our items. And then what you were asking, Michael, is if you wanted to just delete a random item saying, hey, we're just not offering this item anymore. You can either right click and choose delete item in the database, or if you click on the little red X there, that'll delete it too. Any questions about the importing of items? Alright, let's see. Okay, so we're going to go to the document workbook in QuoteWerks. And the reason that we're doing it this way is because we're going to go back into the products. I'm going to show you how to add items to the products, and we're going to go into more product and service information. So our 6 tabs here is what we call the quote workbook. So anytime you're speaking with us or reading our documentation and you see reference to the quote workbook, this is what we're talking about, are these 6 tabs. Now the document items tab is where you're going to spend a lot of your time in QuoteWerks. Those of you who have used QuoteWerks probably pretty much live in it. This is where all your products, services, where you run subtotals out of, group items together, set items is optional. All that's done on this screen here. There's a few different options. We've already talked about customizing these columns through your preferences. You can also do it under the view menu. There's an option for view customized columns, and you can change your columns here. So again, if you haven't done that yet, that's an easy way to kind of simplify this document item screen. There's some different settings here as well that we'll go over once we add a couple items to the quote. But what you can basically understand is that all these toolbar buttons here, you're really only going to use these once you have items on the document. So until you've started adding items, you can kind of ignore these for now. The sold to, ship to we covered through the CRM integration, so I think we're pretty, everyone understands that there. So we're going to move over to the sale info tab next. So the sale info tab is going to be your document specific information. So this is going to have your document date, terms and conditions, contract dates, if you have any ConnectWise users, Autotest users. If you want to set contracts for your specific items, this is where you can set dates so that anything that's set as recurring will use these dates. Anyone else can use these as well. They just don't write over to the CRM or PSA. But if you have, say, subscriptions that you offer for your customers, you can set specific dates here as well.
So when you're saying that, if we have, for example, license renewals that come up and they've got default expiration dates in ConnectWise, this will push it through to QuoteWerks, 30 days out, 60 days out, whatever you set it for renewal?
Other way around. We'll actually, QuoteWerks will, when you set the date, QuoteWorks will push that date into QuoteWorks.
Okay.
The tax rate, this is where you can change the tax rate by clicking on the ellipsis button. This will actually let you set multiple tax rates. So if you sell to different counties or different states and you need to set a variety of different tax rates, you can do that here. If you have our real-time module, we can actually do a tax rate lookup from the sale info tab. I need to pull a contact in just to. But when you click on this, this will actually look at the customer's zip code and tell you what their tax rate is.
Now that's what? That's an added module?
It is. That's in the real-time module, which actually I think you guys have.
Well, because, yeah, when we first purchased it, we didn't have that, so we had to actually enter in, because we're in New York, and every county is a
Right.
different, tax rate.
Yeah.
So we had to go in and manually,
If you want a free trial of the real-time, test it out, see if it'll work for you guys, we can set that up for you. So.
yeah. Now, how would I do that without it affecting the other users? Do I have to create a test?
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah. The only thing that the users would see would be this little button would show up.
Well, we have that now, because, again, when we purchased it, we had to go in and list all the different counties in New York, because our salespeople had to select.
I mean,
That's what we have to do each time.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they see those dots, they can click on it.
it'll be the one next to it though. So there's actually two of them. So like you have this one right
Oh,
here.
there's two,
Two.
sorry.
Yeah, there'll be one directly next to it.
Oh,
That would be the only thing that your users would see.
okay. And
So
they
it's
won't-
pretty non-intrusive.
Okay.
But if you want to set up a test environment,
Yeah, okay.
That's an added feature, right?
yes, that is an extra module.
You guys have it?
The document number will be applied when you save it.
Brandon,
Yes.
the tax rate, is that, I didn't hear what you said. Is that tied to the sold to, the shipped to, or the billed to?
You can actually change it. When
you
you
can-
set it, yeah, by default, it defaults to the ship to. I have mine set to the sold to because I always fill out the sold to. But you can have either of the three, and you can even change it on a per quote.
Okay.
It should be the shift too, because it's always your service location with
Yeah,
the tax.
that's the default. Like I said, for my demos, I just have it set to the sold to, but you can change it.
Well, you know what, and we also have it, I guess, written in the system where it checks with our accounting.
Mhm.
So once it converts over, if it is the incorrect sales tax, it picks up what it is on the accounting side.
Yeah.
But then there's just a discrepancy about what the customer got quoted, that's
Right.
the only thing, yeah.
But that's not something that's automatic,
Yeah.
have on ours?
That's
No,
not part
you-
of the update, that's.
Yeah,
a
you guys
module.
would need to update, and you would need that. Yeah, you guys don't have that module. And as far as like the differentiating tax rates go, a lot of people just put in essentially in the quote like
We
terms
do.
and conditions to say,
Yeah,
hey,
we got
might
that.
be a little different.
Yeah,
So.
we got that.
So your document number will be assigned when you save the document. We went over this as well. When we create the opportunity in QuoteWerks and we're saving the document, we'll apply that document number. Sales rep and prepared by. So the sales rep is who has ownership of that document in QuoteWerks. This is who is actually going to see this document in their open window when they search for documents. It's going to show up in their dashboard, all that information. The prepared by is useful if you're creating quotes on someone's behalf. So someone's out of the office, they're on vacation, and their client requests a quote, or they just ask you to create a quote for them because they can't get to their computer. You can actually prepare a quote on someone's behalf And what this will do is let you still have access to it so you can make changes if you need to, until the sales rep comes in and they can take back ownership of the document. But it'll have all the sales rep's contact information, it'll just give you access to it as long as you're set as a premier account. Doc status, again, this setting is by default, but you can see there is an ellipsis button next to it, so if you do want to change it manually, you can do that. And then our expiration field here, if you need to adjust your expiration date, it's done under the tools options that we talked about earlier, but you can also manually do it here. Anytime you see a date field, if you double click, it'll bring up a calendar window, and you can either type in the date or just manually select it. The Notes tab has 4 different notes fields. We have the introduction and closing on the left-hand side and the purchasing and internal on the right-hand side. The introduction and closing notes are typically notes you would want the customer to see. These are typically going to show up on the document to the customer. So it might have about us information, ordering instructions, boilerplate information, anything that you want the customer to see in these fields. See, there is an option for setting defaults. You can actually put default information in there so they show up in every quote, but they can be changed on a quote-to-quote basis as well, so it's pretty flexible there.
Where did the introduction and closing show up on?
You actually specify. Typically, it's going to be the top and the bottom, top for the introduction, bottom for the closing, but you can move those fields around on the layout if you want to. The purchasing and internal notes are typically notes that are not shown to the customer. So if you have notes that you want to just put for yourself, or maybe you're working on a quote with another user, you can use these fields. You don't have to worry about the customer ever seeing these. They're just going to be for your internal use only, as long as they're not mapped. And they're not mapped on any of our layouts by default, but before you start putting like nasty notes about your customers in there, just double check. Custom tab, this is useful if you have any additional fields that you need in your quotes or proposals. So if you have multiple sites that you sell to, or in this case we don't have account numbers or account names in QuoteWerks, so I've actually customized these fields so that I can put that information in here. If you hold Control on your keyboard and double click on the label name, this will actually let you change the label name and customize that field. So in this case, I could change this to, well, I'm just going to leave it the same as account number, but if I wanted to change this one to, say, test, you can rename these fields. Now again, this is a site change, so you need to be a QuoteWerks admin, and it's going to change it for everyone. So again, make sure you're changing it, just not for your personal use, for everyone in the company. This is extremely useful if you want to pull additional fields using the data link through QuoteWerks from your CRM or PSA. You can pull those additional fields from your CRM or PSA into QuoteWerks, and this is a good place to put that information. And then these fields can even be mapped to your layout so they show up to the customers.
So custom, is that on the 5 version? No, custom.
Should have custom. Oh, they probably renamed it. That's a good point. If you hold Control and double click on the tab name, you can also rename the tab name. So if you want to call it something else or use it for something else, you can do that. And that goes for the notes, sale info, and sold to, ship to tabs as well. If you want to rename a tab or rename fields on the tab, again, it's just Control, double click, and you can rename any of those fields. So you can really customize QuoteWerks to read, into your process and what you're used to using. The links tab is going to have, this is going to be the place where you store your additional documentation for your quote or proposal. So if you have a statement of work, Vizier CAD drawing, Excel spreadsheet, PowerPoint presentation, PDF document, Word document, really any type of document you want to attach to this quote or proposal that you're working on and be able to send it to the customer, or maybe you just need to be able to have it in one location so you can reference it, you can attach those here. You can either drag and drop the file and we'll link to where it is, or you can click on the Add File Link button and we'll navigate to a specific document in your installation. One thing to note here on the linked resources is that when you link to a linked resources file, we're not moving the location of the document. We are just simply basically creating a shortcut to where it already exists. So if you have, if you're sharing this among different users and you have something on your desktop and you link to it here and you tell, John Sales to go in there and send that to the customer, he's not going to have access to it because it's on your desktop. So you just need to make sure that if you're going to share documents they're on you know, a server or somewhere, some shared location where other users can grab it from. Up at the top, we have our Toolbar Shortcuts. All these shortcuts are actually customizable through the menu options for each user. So if you're not using some of these shortcuts, you can actually hide the menu option, and that'll in turn hide the icon as well. You can't add more, unfortunately. You can't choose, you know, to add different ones. It's just this is going to be the full list, and then you can essentially just take away from here if you want to. Your new button will create a new blank document in QuoteWerks. It'll look exactly like that. It'll start with whatever defaults you have set. The open window is going to open up your search window in QuoteWerks. This is where you're going to look for your documents. So this will let you search by your document name, document number, the status of the document, the sales rep that created it, who prepared it, a specific company, specific contact, document date, expiration date, class modified, or item field. So if you can't find a document in QuoteWerks, it probably isn't in there.
So that spreadsheet down below, that's still not customizable? Meaning like whatever headers are there are there?
You can move them around.
Yeah, I know.
But you can't hide any or add any. We've added some in the last version. I think there's like 30 or 40 fields now.
Right.
But you can, if you just left click on the column name, you can move them around now.
Yeah, but like what's template type? Like, what is that? Like, what would you even use that for?
Oh, this one?
I don't know, it just says template type.
That's an excellent question. I've been here 7 years and I've
Merge
never
code,
seen that
like-
field before.
And you can't change those headings.
Yeah, that would be an excellent question for Michael Richter, who just rejoined us. I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. No. Does anyone have any questions about searching or finding documents?
I have basically a product, a possible request for change. When you're in here and you bring it up again, and you already have something in from the search you did earlier, like before lunch, and you come back from lunch and you can't find it, you usually find out that, oh, I had a contact name in there. So I was wondering if the clear button, if there's any of those values are now populated and you bring it up again, if that can somehow be highlighted. So it shows that, okay, now there's content in here. So you can click that to clear that content to do a new search, as opposed to having the existing content you already had in there still there, and you've been spending the last 15 minutes, after a 2-martini lunch, it can take a long time, and you're trying to figure out where that document is.
Yeah, that's a good request. Just gonna make a note of that. Yeah, there's no way to do that right now. It's kind of like,
Yeah, I pretty much just have a habit of opening it up and hitting clear.
Right.
So it's just kind of a habit, but if it just came up and it was already highlighted, oh yeah, I still want to use this company, but I want to find this document, well, that helps me know if it's already there, but if it's not there, I need to hit clear.
I mean, that's something that they might be able to add.
What is the suspend?
Oh, superseded? Yeah. It's very small.
This
Together.
is cool.
Superseded is if you're creating revisions. It'll basically say that there's another
Not
document
every
after this
line,
one.
So you can only do that if you do a revision of the automatic.
It's like the major ones.
Because you can do a search that doesn't include revisions. There's a checkbox that you include or not include.
Okay.
So if you have this unchecked, you may not know that this has a revision with it.
Okay.
So I'll just kind of let you know. Any other questions about searching for documents in QuoteWerks? Pretty straightforward. I don't have any issues with it. No. The templates on the left-hand side is going to show you a list of all your document templates that you have in QuoteWerks. So if you sell a lot of the same items or services on a regular basis, you can create a document template in QuoteWerks, so you don't have to start from scratch each time you create a quote. This is where you would manage those documents. So this is going to show you a list of all the templates that you've created, and then you can open them and delete them to make changes. It's important just to note the difference between templates and layouts in QuoteWerks, because templates are these documents. They're pre-formatted documents that you've set in QuoteWerks. Layouts is the customer output that you deliver to the customer. So if you're looking for, in our help file, and you're asking for help and you're saying, I need help with templates, that file is going to bring you to this screen here. Where if you're asking for layout help, then it'll bring you to the deliver screen and show you how to edit the layouts there. So just something to keep in mind. So this is where you would manage those templates, where you can edit, update, make changes, delete them. If you want to create a brand new template, you would build a quote in QuoteWerks just like you normally would. So we just add a couple items here. So you would add your items, maybe a heading line, and we're going to go into more about heading lines and products. I'm just going to show you real quick how to create a template.
While you're doing that template, for example, I have a template that someone generated, but it has like 5 different versions of different laptop choices. You'd want one template for each choice as a quote. You wouldn't want to have 6 different ones that you have to eliminate the ones you're not using in that particular instance, right?
You could definitely do that. And there's no limit on how many templates you can create.
Right, okay.
The only reason you'd want to have all 5 laptops in one template would be for quote-related mobile
Makes
or
sense.
something along those lines. That way you have the options.
Oh, to have like an option A, B, C.
Correct.
Where the
ID,
customer
low end.
would choose.
Where the customer would choose or when you're off-site. Like for quote-related mobile, it's going to be template-driven. So you'd want to have all your options there and then remove the ones you don't want to quote or
Okay.
anything along those lines. So that's why you'd want to have a template with all of them.
Okay, that makes sense.
So to create a template, you're simply going to, once you've created your quote in QuoteWorks, simply click on File, Save as Template. So, very simple. It'll ask you for the template name. Why would you create a template? A lot of companies sell a lot of the same items or quote a lot of the same items on a regular basis. So instead of having to start from a blank quote each time, they could already have it preset
So
with,
if you know you sell big, many items all the time, that's the.
right, or we offer 3 services no matter what we quote. We're saying, we're always going to do installation, there's always going to be a travel fee, there's always going to be this thing. So instead of having to add that each time, you can already have it preset.
Plus, we have things where it's component built. So if you've got 3 different manufacturers that create the finished product, you want everything in one spot. They're quoting out one thing.
Yeah.
So once you've saved it, you'll see you'll have a,
Can you make your template your default, or template the default and open up every time?
no, but you can have it set up where you can start from a template, like basically start from like a blank screen and you have to hit new. So once you have your template, it'll assign a template number here. And then to use your template, it's going to be a little different, is you're actually going to go to File, New. And then by default, if you've never used templates before, you're actually going to see this tab. And then you're going to click on the Template tab. And then you would select the template that you want to use. So in this case, it's going to be our training template that I created today. And then hit OK. And you can see it loads our template for us. And then once I save it, it'll apply that document number. If I need to make changes to the template, I need to update it, and we'll go to our Open, click on All Templates. There's our template, and then we can modify that template and make any changes.
Are these for everybody in the company, or is it just for the user?
Good question. That is, yes, these templates are for everyone. You can limit who has access to make changes to the template. You can lock that down, but everyone will be able to do them. Any questions about templates?
So you're saying you can make a template and the way you access it every time is you have to go into Open and choose that particular template?
If you want to make changes, if you want to just use it,
Yeah,
it would be File, New,
okay,
and then just click on the Template tab, and then you select the template you want to use.
okay.
In the next release that's coming out here in a couple weeks, there's actually going to be a little arrow on this button that'll let you load from the template here, so it'll save you a step.
Oh, right there, okay.
Any other questions about templates? No? Save, very straightforward. We already went through this, but this is where you will save your document. This is where it's going to assign the document name, the document number, and the status. So we'll go ahead and save this one. The revision button. So we talked about this earlier. So when you send out a quote to your customer and they come back and they ask you to make some adjustments, this is where you can actually save a copy of your document without having to do like a file copy or file save as. You can use the revision icon. So maybe you don't want to lose the original document that you created for the customer, so you actually create a revision instead. So when you create a revision, it'll prompt you, do you want to delete the previous revision? In this case I don't, and I'll hit OK. And then you'll see in my case it creates a -01 after the document number, so I know it's that first revision of that original document. Each time I create a revision, it's going to keep counting up. So the first one's -01, then -02, -03, and it'll keep counting up as many revisions as you need. If you want to view a previous revision or the original document and you're on a revision, you can click on View, Document Revisions, and this will show you a list of all the revision documents. Or if you've created any orders, or if you just want to see them in kind of like a top-down format instead of the tree, you can click on the Associated Documents tab, and this will show you a list of all the associated documents. So again, that's going to be under View, Document Revisions, or you can do View Associated Documents.
And when I do that, and I hit don't delete, that uncheck, it's still, my original disappears.
Oh my God.
We'll have to have support for that. It shouldn't be doing that.
I know.
Yeah.
So Brenda, I just want to understand, if I create a quote, I can do a revision, I understand that, but if I create an order from that quote, can I then do a revision after I've done the order or not?
Yeah, you can create a revision from an order, I think.
So technically, if I have a quote for multiple products, and I have to send them to multiple ship-tos, which I can't do, I could use a revision, right? I could recreate a revision, delete what I need to do, and have everything under a single number, under a single quote number, but one would go to one location, two would go to another location.
I have to check, but I don't think you can do revisions on orders.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out how I could keep it all under one quote number, because the company wants us to pay a single check.
Yeah,
Do a
But is it
revision
for
page,
the,
you send it.
is it for the
change
same,
the location, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, to ship to
Yeah.
on the revision. You have that.
We have
I've never tried that before. I have my order.
we also can see them all in drop down list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right, you could convert your quote to an order and then you can create multiple orders with your different ship-tos.
But I still have the basic number.
Right, yeah, because you can see here it converted to an order. Because once you convert your quote to an order, you'll have that little indicator here. It'll be an O instead of a Q.
Right.
And then, yeah, it's just letting me still do the straight order document, so yeah.
Well,
So you create the order, you create the quote, and you convert it to an order, and then you can revise that and change the ship to.
Right.
You could do that before you.
so yeah, first order would
I
have
could, yeah.
the number of items going to one.
Or something to do.
Yeah. That way you keep it all under one number.
Yeah.
But they're not really
match the
subsets of
Right.
Yeah, you have
You still just see that one invoice,
to, it's a workaround.
just the one billing invoice, and you're still done.
Yeah.
Or more importantly, if they call you and say, this didn't arrive, you need to look at that one number. It's only the revision matters.
Yeah, 'cause we have a lot of, there's a lot of things that that way as well.
That's what that
That's it. We want to create, the customer wants to order for options, they create order for documents.
No, we only have one person who will
You
ship to.
can do that. You have to kind of do a little workaround where you
Changes.
click on the deliver and you can do a save as PDF. Then when you save as PDF, when you do save as PDF, you can actually add it to the links tab. Or you can save it out, but that it'd probably be easier actually to save
If
it
that's
out to the
okay for us,
desktop.
because we
Save it as PDF to the desktop and manually attach them to the links tab of one document. Email the document, you can go to the links tab here and just basically select those three files. So it's not the smoothest thing, but that's how you do it.
Okay, and all of them generated in that same email address.
Right, that'll be for
And for us, it just keeps the order, because if they want to call and say, I want five.
Save.
yeah, save as PDF. And we'll actually save it out.
So it ties back to what I see.
Alright, the deliver window, you guys should be pretty familiar with this and we'll go into a little more detail here later, but this is basically where you'll choose the output that the customer's going to receive from you. So you'll choose your layout, if you're going to include a cover page, literature, spec sheet, anything on the links tab, this is where you're going to make those selections and choose what the customer's actually going to receive from you. You'll have the option to preview it before you send it. You can obviously email it. If you're going to use Quote Valley, you'll have that upload to Quote Valley button there as well. This is also where you can make changes to the layout. So if you need to copy an existing layout, need to clone it, edit it, whatever. And this is also where you can save as PDF, where I was just actually kind of talking about this, where if you wanted to save out the PDF document to some other location, or you're going to attach it to maybe a separate email, you can save out the PDF right here as well. The dashboard. Actually, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break here. So if you guys want to come back at 10:45, and we'll get into the deep dashboard.